A lot of people have been telling me to make videos on Superstar Saga, and yes, I get it. It's a very good Mario and Luigi game, and I agree with that, but it's also the most basic, so it's kind of just a little bit boring to talk about. I mean, other Mario RPGs have more uniqueness to them compared to Superstar Saga, but at the very least, I will talk about the bosses, because all bosses in the Mario and Luigi series are going to be at least interesting to talk about, because they're just bosses in general. But I'm not going to be counting every single boss in Superstar Saga for this list. I mean, there's 25 bosses. That's a lot of bosses. I'm not going to be counting the Popple fights. There's 4 of them, and they're repeating. I don't bother with repeating fights. Yes, they're good, and I might talk about that in a later video, but not right now. I'm also not going to be counting the Koopaling fights. There's 7 of them, and they're all basically the same concept, so I'm also not going to be talking about them. I'm also not going to be talking about Piranha Bean. Who cares? I don't even dislike the fight, it's just, why is it considered a boss? So I'm not going to bother with that either. So in this regard, there's only 13 bosses to talk about, and that's much more manageable. So let's get started in this video. But before we actually get started in this video, I am still trying to hit 1,000 subscribers before summer break hits. So I'd really appreciate if you subscribe, or tell a Mario RPG fan to subscribe. I really appreciate that. But other than that, let's get started in this video. Tolstar is the first boss in the game, and oh my god, it doesn't even feel like a first boss. It's so easy, and I'm comparing this to other first bosses, not just bosses in general. I mean, Tolstar has so little HP, you could probably take him out in around 2 or 3 turns. You can also dodge his attack really easily, and I said attack, not attacks, because Tolstar has 1 single attack, and that's it. 1. Which is pathetic for a first boss. I mean, all he does is just throw spike balls at you, and sometimes if he laughs right before he attacks, then the spike ball goes over you. I guess that helps you with signals, but the Fawful tutorial fight already taught you about signals, so you can't even use that excuse. I mean, Tolstar is just such a pathetic first boss, it's embarrassing. I mean, you could take him out literally in less than 5 turns, which is terrible for a first boss. And this is why Tolstar is my least favorite boss from Superstar Saga. It's not bad, but it's so extremely easy. Dragaho-Ho is just like Tolstar. It has more HP though, and I like its attack. Literally the only reasons why it's above Tolstar. I mean, his attack isn't even that much better, it's just a bit harder to dodge. He spits fire rocks at you. But if he's shorter, then it's just easier to dodge. But if he steps on a stone and he's shorter, then it's actually not that easy. It's just as normal if he was tall. So I guess it's not terrible. It's good dodge training, I guess, but that's it. That's literally the only thing interesting here. I like that he spits out a stone. It's kind of weird to look at. It's interesting to say the least, but that's it. Also, he does very little damage, and he has still very little HP. Just use your Avenge Bros attacks, which you're more likely gonna have this time. So because of this, yeah, there's just no point. Like, come on. This is so pathetic, too, because you just had Huurus right before this fight, which, even though that fight was still easy, it had a better concept. Here, it's just still extremely basic, which is really disappointing, and why it's at number 12. Info card to show my Wiggler fight ranking for all the Mario and Luigi games. Yeah, it shows this fight, and to be honest, this fight is boring. It's the most basic Wiggler fight, because if you think of the Wiggler fight formula, it's exactly what you get. At the very least, this fight does have more than 1 attack, which I can't actually say about the last 2 fights we talked about, but I still think it's very bare bones. Again, check out the Wiggler fight ranking if you want to see my full-on opinion with this fight, but to be honest, this fight is just really basic and boring. I don't really care about it at all. Yes, Huurus is easy. Yes, Huurus only has 1 attack, basically. But oh my god, I really like the concept for this fight. There's 2 pillars. One of them Huurus is right under, but the other one is empty. You have to attack the empty pillar first, because if you attack the pillar that Huurus is under, he's just going to go to the other pillar, the other side, and if the pillar is there, well, he's still going to be hiding. But if the empty pillar isn't there, then you actually have a chance to attack him and do some damage. Yes, Advanced Bounce Bros does make this pretty easy because you can attack him and the pillar that's just empty. The only thing about it though is I still think this concept is pretty good for early game. It's not too difficult, but for the second boss in the game, it's definitely complex, and that's why I think that this is a better second boss than most second bosses in the Mario and Luigi series. Yes, it's still really easy, and yes, the attacks are still kind of basic, even though I do like that the pillar only attacks the bro in front of it, and Horus himself goes side to side between each bros. That I enjoy. Just in general, it's still a basic boss. Again, it's still the second boss in the game, so it kind of has to be basic, which is why it's still this slow. I do enjoy the concept, but it still needed to be a bit more difficult in my opinion. Mom Piranha is the most forgettable fight in the entire game. Like, it's not even that close. I don't remember anything about it. I mean, the attacks here are okay. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't remember the attacks. I'm not kidding. I just thought of this. I just realized I don't remember the attacks of Mom Piranha. I'm gonna have to look back at the footage to realize what the attacks are. They could be good. They could be crap. I don't actually know. I don't remember if the difficulty of this fight was hard or easy. I don't know. It's probably easy because it's Superstar Saga, but I don't know. I don't know if it was harder than normal or easier than normal. It just... there's nothing here. That's probably why it's so unmemorable, because there's no interesting concepts here. The only thing I remember, and the only thing that really stuck with me, is that the small piranha plants have elemental weaknesses, which is good because you just got the hand powers. But that's it. That's literally the only thing I remember. Not even about the main boss, just about the minions that the boss summons. That's it. That's the only thing. If a boss is this forgettable, there has to be something wrong with it. There has to be. I don't even think that this is a bad boss. I think it's probably a good concept. I mean, it is out of nowhere. But, I mean, come on. If a boss is this forgettable, the boss has to be doing something wrong. I remember a lot of bosses in the Mario and Luigi series, but somehow this is one of the most forgettable, and I don't know why. Queen Bean is a decent fight. I actually think that if this was the first boss in the game, it'd be a pretty good first boss. I mean, story-wise, it wouldn't make sense at all, but just the boss fight itself, I actually think it'd be a pretty good first boss. But just in general, I like the attacks here. I think the shockwave attack is pretty good. I like the attack where she slams both of her fists on you, and I like the bean attack when she doesn't have her arms actually powered up. I actually like that if you jump on the beans, they turn into beanies, actually punishing you if you just randomly jump on the beans. I think that's also pretty good. I also like that you can't initially attack her weak point. It's covered by the crown. You have to attack her arms first. This is really good, and it's definitely a good boss. The problem here is that you only have your initial bros attacks, and it's still a pretty easy fight. I mean, it's still kind of pathetic. It's definitely an early game fight. You could probably take this boss out pretty easily. Not in like 5 turns, maybe like 6 or 7, but it's still a pretty easy fight compared to other bosses in this game, which is why it's still pretty low. And it's also concept-wise not amazing. It's obviously evolved better with stuff like Hermie, so because of that, I mean, it's a good fight for the early game, but just compared to other Superstar Saga fights, it does deserve to be a bit lower. Hermie the Third is a very good boss. I do think that it's extremely forgettable though, just like Mom Piranha, but luckily for Hermie the Third, I do remember the main things about this fight. I like that Hermie the Third hides in his shell, because that makes sure that you do 0 damage to him, and the only way to actually bring him up is to do fire damage, which is a very unique way to do it, but it does make sense, because you start burning his decorations on his shell. I also like that there's 2 claws that you have to damage. Technically you don't have to, but if you do, that means that it's really hard for him to actually attack you effectively, which is very good and I do enjoy it. I also like the attacks here, they're very simple, but I do enjoy them. But that's really it. That's the only thing I do remember. The only couple of things that I remember. I mean, that is a decent amount of things, and I do enjoy the boss because of it, but it is somewhat easy. It is somewhat long, so because of this, I can't put it any higher. It's definitely a good boss, but since it is definitely forgettable, just like Mom Piranha, it has to be lower. Trunkle is a fine fight. It's good. It works. There's nothing really else to talk about. I mean, he has a branch on top of him, and you can just use stuff like Swing Bros or Knockback Bros on his branch. Then he'll start covering it up. I don't know why you can just randomly attack his branch. I think it's a bit odd. It doesn't need to be there. It feels a bit pointless. He also does split into 4. Oh boy, now we have to talk about Mrs. Thwomp from Partners in Time, because every single time I think about splitting into 4, I think of Mrs. Thwomp first compared to Trunkle. I actually think that Miss Thwomp is better than Trunkle, which is not good for Superstar Saga as a whole, because Miss Thwomp on my boss ranking for Partners in Time ranked really low, and here with Trunkle, he's in the top half, which actually shows that Superstar Saga does not have as good of bosses compared to Partners in Time. But back to Trunkle here. I mean, he's fine. I think his attacks are decent. I think they're better than average. But when he's split up, I mean, his attacks are fine. They're not bad. They're not good. They're just there. I mean, he's easy, especially when he's shrunk because he has way less defense and it's pretty easy to tell which one is which. So because of this, I mean, Trunkle isn't bad, but it's just a bit bland and a bit boring. But he's not a bad fight at all. It's definitely enjoyable. Chuckleator is a very good boss. I did not expect this boss to be this good, but it is. I mean, it's pretty early in the game, but yeah, it's a very fun fight. Well, first off, I really like all the things he has in his arsenal. He has a soda gun, he has a soda barrel shield, it's just a barrel shield, and he has a soda gun. In this regard, I think that all 3 of these can lead to pretty good attacks. Also, the barrel shield leads to some pretty good defense. You actually have to break the barrel shield before you do a lot of damage to him. In that regard, I think it's a very good thing that that's there. I also like when you break the barrel shield, both the soda gun and the soda sword can be used for attacks. And obviously, his attacks are very fun to dodge. I also like when he feels very weak, he just goes into like this squished soda, I guess that's what it is, and he's shaking, but that really lowers his defense. This is where you want to use stuff like Advanced Knockback Bros and Chopper Bros to really do a lot of damage. But the guy who made the soda comes out and tells the soda, the Chuckleator, some soda puns. They're really bad, but it does heal the Chuckleator a bit, which might bring him actually higher defense, which is a good thing. It makes the boss harder and it adds some more charm to the fight. I enjoyed this fight quite a bit. It's a very good fight that's pretty early in the game. I did not expect something this good to come out very early. But yeah, I genuinely like the Chuckleator. It's a very good fight. Jora and Jajora's friend fails as a duo fight in my opinion, but I do still enjoy this fight. The reason why I say it fails is because I'm kind of comparing it to something like Popple and Rookie, where they kind of just are a duo, they fight together, but here, I mean, not really. It just feels like you're fighting 2 bosses. I mean, Jajora has some really good attacks. I like all the stuff that deals with snowstorms. They actually heal the boss, and they're kind of difficult to dodge, and they're definitely unique. I also like Jajora's friend's attack. They can actually put makeup on, which inflicts max poison if you get hit. I really like that because that's really threatening. And also the attacks, if you get hit, are really odd. Like, they're very unique. I'm pretty sure one of the attacks, Jajora's friend just kiss one of the bros. It's really weird. But, I mean, it's very unique, which is enjoyable. But, I mean, it's very odd. But, I mean, I do enjoy the fight because of it. I do think, though, because it fails as a duo fight, it can't get any higher. I do enjoy the attacks, but I also don't like that you basically are forced to fight Jajora's friend over Jajora, because Jajora kind of just leaves after you knock her wand away. So because of this, I mean, it just feels like you're fighting Jajora's friend, which isn't that hard. It's not that hard of a boss fight. So because of this, it doesn't deserve to be any higher. It definitely is a good fight, though. I'm sorry to say this, but this Fawful fight is the last fight on this list that I consider pretty forgettable. I mean, it's very high for a reason. I think that the attacks here are very good. I really like that Fawful is basically inside the shield thing, and you can barely do any damage. I like that the most damage you can actually do is by counterattacking, and I like that the only time you can actually damage him aside from that is by the thing overheating. That's the only way you can damage him, and I think in this regard, it works really well. I also like the attacks here, of course. The only reason why it's probably forgettable, though, is because this fight is sandwiched between so many Koopaling fights. I mean, there's so many, it's ridiculous. Obviously, also, there's the Bowletta and Cackletta Soul fight, which is going to overshadow this fight by a landslide. I mean, I don't dislike this fight, obviously. You can tell I really like everything about it, but since it's so forgettable, it has to be number 3. It's the lowest out of the great fights in this game. Cackletta is a great boss, and I'm pretty sure the developers were going to make this the final boss. They were going to end the game at Woohoo University. I mean, it was a great decision not to do that because, I mean, Cackletta right here is too easy for a final boss, but I really do like the attacks. I mean, I really like the black holes here. It's very fun. It's definitely a very threatening attack. I also like the lightning attacks. I like that Cackletta splits into different copies. And luckily, you have different bros attacks, and I actually figure out which copy is which. And here, it's actually useful because you don't actually have a way to figure out which one's which, unlike in a Trunkle fight or something. So, I like everything about Cackletta. The only thing, the one and only thing, which is why it's not number 1, is because it's too easy. I mean, if this was supposed to be the final boss, well, it was supposed to be the final boss. This isn't the final boss, obviously. But, I mean, it's still too easy for it to be Cackletta, the main villain of the game. I think it's too easy in that regard as well. So because of that, Cackletta cannot be number 1. But, I mean, you guys know exactly what number 1 is. Bowletta and Cackletta's Soul was going to be number 1. I just knew when I eventually did this video it was going to be number 1. I mean, it's really difficult and the attacks are really creative. That's all I really needed to know for this boss fight to be number 1. And we'll talk about Bowletta first. I mean, Bowletta fits that criteria perfectly. It's not too difficult, but I really enjoy the attacks. I mean, that's it. Bowletta is better than every single boss we've talked about so far. It probably won't be better than Popple and Rookie. I'm not sure, though. The thing, though, is that Bowletta is better than every single boss we talked about. And yes, I'm pretty sure I said that for the Elder Princess Shroob Phase 1, which I don't agree with anymore, but here I absolutely mean it. But let's talk about Cackletta's Soul, because that's the only thing that people actually care about. I mean, I've already talked about it in my final boss ranking, so you can see that for my, I guess, opinionated, like, really in-depth. But here, Cackletta's Soul, it's really fun, it's really difficult. And it's mainly good because it attacks multiple times, and you start off with 1 HP for both bro, which is very intimidating, it's very scary. I also think the theme's okay. I don't think it's great for a final boss, but it's definitely good. I mean, I just really enjoy the final boss. Obviously, its weak point is pretty hidden for a while for the boss fight. I really enjoy this boss fight a lot. I really like the arms having elemental weaknesses. I really like the attacks. I mean, I just love a lot about the Cackletta Soul fight. And yes, I did say that this boss fight is going to get easier the more I play it. And that's kind of what happened for me with Dreamy Bowser, and it's going to absolutely happen with Cackletta's Soul. So because of that, I mean, Cackletta's Soul is a great final boss now, but the more I play it, the worse it's going to get. It might get worse than Dreamy Bowser just because the attacks aren't as creative. But right now, I really do enjoy Cackletta's Soul. Thank you guys for watching this video. My next video will probably be like, I don't know, I'll probably have like a poll on Discord for you guys to vote for it. Make sure to join my Discord. I'll have it linked in the description. But other than that, make sure to subscribe as well. You lasted this long. But yeah, other than that, G-bye.